So what I would call like an NDE was a very like intense spiritual awakening moment in my life where I completely shifted in my consciousness and died to the human that I was. And it's a really strange experience because it was unexpected. But back in 2016, I was in a place where I was just really seeking God in a way that I really wanted to know the truth. Like I felt like things were off in my life and that there was more I was supposed to be doing, but I didn't know what it was. And I was in religion at the time, very like strong Christian. And so I remember I was mowing my backyard and just beating myself up like I always do, like just criticizing myself, like I am never going to do anything right. I can't live up to these expectations. Just feeling like there wasn't anything good about me. And as I'm in the middle of my yard, I suddenly hear this audible voice that comes through and says, "You're doing it wrong." And at first I thought I made this up and I was like, okay, that was weird. And so I just kept going and then I heard it again. "You're doing it wrong. Stop walking in condemnation." And when I heard it the second time, I knew I'd heard a voice. And so I stopped in my tracks in my backyard. And then just within a second, it was like my entire being just shifted in reality. And I started to suddenly see my entire life completely different. It was almost like I had been living inside of this really dense energy box of a life, trying to fit into the world and be who I was supposed to be. And that box kind of just dropped off of me. And I began to see reality completely different. And it was literally a near death experience where I started to, my entire life started to flash before my eyes. I could see like things in my childhood that I hadn't even known that I had gone through. Like I didn't even realize I had been abused in childhood. I started to see, I was working in the mental health field. I started to see my job and how restricting it was for me and what I was doing in the world. I started to see my self, how I had gotten into the church setting back when I was 16 and what led me to that. And I started feeling like this is not real. This is what I'm learning is not the real truth. And I started having these sudden urges to change everything in my life. And it was really terrifying, I won't lie. Like everything that I knew to be true, my identity, the way I related to people, the way I related to myself, everything was wrapped around this identity I'd created as this really strong Christian woman that was like striving to serve God and be perfect. And in that moment, none of that mattered. And so I didn't know what to do first. Like I suddenly had this urge to leave my job, leave my church, like everything. I wanted to change everything. And I remember it seems silly to me now, but at the time it was a really scary thing for me. But I wouldn't even listen to music that wasn't Christian at the time because I was terrified that I was going to do something wrong. And the first thing I felt like wanted to come back into my life is being authentic, like being myself, doing things I loved. And that meant like music even. And so I remember the first time I got in my car after that, I turned the channel off of what I had normally been listening to, like a Christian station, and listened to something I had always enjoyed before I became a Christian back in when I was 16. And it was scary for me, but I kept pushing through because I knew something shifted that day. Something changed. And like I know now that this was, I think I've had some Kundalini experiences in my life, but I feel like this was a second awakening or like literally a death experience to myself. My entire identity shifted in a second. And I started to make, I did quit my job in 6 months. I left my church in 6 months after that. And I started really pursuing like, what am I here to do on earth? And that took me on a journey that has been insanely crazy, but that is really what happened to me, and that was in the summer of 2016. It's kind of complicated in some ways to describe because it's kind of been all over the place, but as a child, I've always been strange. I've always had like spiritual experiences. I could see spirits as a child. As a child, I remember healing myself with my own energy in my hands. And then I just always was different. I could never fit in. So I knew there was something out there beyond what I was experiencing. And so I started looking for what am I? What is God? What is this place that I'm in, and that led me to the church. I didn't know where else to go. I live in the middle of the U.S. in Kansas, so the one thing that you can find here is a church. And so at 16, I started going to church, and this was an experience where I found myself like in a room with a whole bunch of other teenagers like myself, seeking, and I was like, oh, this is it. I'm going to find who God is in this place. And in a way, I do think it did help me to find God in some aspect, but not in this fullness. And so I went on a journey at 16 where I became very dedicated to my faith. And that even led me into going to a Christian college when I graduated from high school, which I stayed and got a degree in Bible because I really wanted to know everything I could. Then I left Christian college and I went to a university to get a degree working in the mental health field. And I knew I was here to help people heal. I knew I was here to do something big. And I knew it was because I was supposed to serve God in some type of way. So I kept pursuing in the church setting, like ways that I could teach, ways that I could serve. And all of it was coming from a understanding that I needed to earn my way to God. I needed to earn this love of this being that we call God. This, in the church setting that I was in, it was always this masculine energy that was going to judge us and criticize us if we didn't do the right thing. And so I found myself in that journey of coming to know God in a way that was scary, that wasn't loving, or you have one side of it saying, oh, this is a loving God, always wanting the best for you, and then on the other end is, but if you do this wrong, then you're going to be judged or sent to hell, kind of a thing. So there was this conflict with me all the time, like I don't know how to balance this out because I can't stop being a sinner. I can't stop sinning in things that are human. And so I know around probably 2014, in between all that, I was really having a lot of weird experiences. I was having dreams. I was having visions. My very first book I wrote is called Leaf Lessons, and it's based off of a vision I had back in 2004. And that vision opened me up to wanting to pursue my relationship with God in a way that served. And so I started wanting to do things like I started traveling the world to try to help people. I started, working in the mental health field, doing all these things for God. And then around 2014, something shifted for me where I suddenly had this urge to study end times. And in the church setting, they talk about like the rapture and you're going to go to hell if you don't, you haven't accepted Jesus and all these different things. And so but something didn't feel right to me. So I started studying everything I could. I remember I would have out like 4 different Bibles in front of me, all different kind of versions. And I would compare them to each other, and I'd start to find that they weren't all adding up. And so I started asking questions. And the questions, of course, were not welcomed by the church because, I was being led astray by, demonic things. But I knew I was experiencing something. Like I was still seeing spirits. I was still hearing things. I was still having this really strange experiences, and nobody could tell me what it was. And so I just was going to find it out myself. And I do believe because I dove in so deeply, that's why I awoken in 2016. And since then, my view of God has completely shifted. And I've actually had experiences where I have seen God in visions, like out of body experiences, and come to understand myself as this energy, and also who I am and why I've always felt different on earth, and how the mission of being a divine being and actually a replica of this frequency of God, that we are all it. We are all this energy of love. When we come back to our truth, which is what, we're going through in this global awakening, is we're coming back to the understanding of who we are, that there's nothing we have to do or earn to be close to this thing that, or being that we call God. And so I've had to work through some of the, I sometimes I don't like to call it trauma of religion, but it kind of is trauma because it distorts your perception of yourself, which then distorts your perception of what God is. And so my view of God has transformed from, like, I almost feel like I went back to my childhood in some kind of way where it was very pure and like lighthearted and fun and exciting and less obligated, or it feels like coming home now. And that's like what I desire for all humans, is to come into this place of like stillness. There's nothing to do, and God is the divine energy of all things, and we are God in a different energy form, that where this being is experiencing itself, and we have the privilege of being a part of that. So that's how that has shifted all over the place. And I've had to work on even being able to say the word God was hard for a while because of that negative tone that the religion brought in, like with its masculine domineering hierarchy system. And particularly, here in the US, there's a lot of that happens. And it's been interesting to see a lot of things transforming with that. But breaking down those laws and regulations and all that stuff to see love is what has really happened. And love doesn't have any obligation or attachment or fear within it. So that is where I've come to know God in this journey. I'll tell you two very distinct experiences. I'll tell you the first one, and then the second one where I actually saw God. The very first experience I had, I was meditating, and I suddenly found myself kind of shifting out of my body, like my soul coming out. And I found myself in this room that I didn't even know it was a room at first. It was just this white place. And it was so bright. It was so beautiful. It felt like pure love. There's nothing to describe it. And as I'm standing in this whiteness, more white, bright light started to shine into this. And that's when I discovered I was in a room, because I could see the windows brightening around me. And then suddenly to my left, this door opens and more bright comes in the door, like this brightest, whitest, like frequency. And this chair, that is wooden chair, suddenly appeared right beside me on my right side. And I just had this distinct knowing. I just grabbed the chair and pulled it over to the door. And when I got to the door, I reached up and I unzipped my body, and I took my body off and I set it on the chair, and I stepped out into this door, into this light. And it was the most magical feeling I've ever had. It was like, oh my God, this is it. This is where we're from. This is who we are. And I just was overwhelmed with love. I was just crying, and it's like, even talking about it now is just like overwhelming. But I remember being in that energy and being like, I want more. And so I started to like take a step forward into this light. And then I felt this hand push back on me and said, no, You're only supposed to feel and experience this. You need to go back to your body. And that's when I realized I wasn't in my body. And so suddenly I'm back in my body and like coming out of this meditative state. And I'm like, oh my God, I think I just saw what we would call heaven or another dimension. And so that was my first really intense out of body experience where I saw another and experienced another dimension. Then the next time, this was pretty shortly after that, I was meditating again. And again, I felt myself shifting out of my body. And as I shifted out of my body, I was moving up away from the earth and I could see the entire earth. And I saw the frequencies of the earth. Everything had light. The trees, the grass, the humans, everything was pure energy. And it was like these different rainbow colors that I could never describe. Like we cannot see this kind of color as humans. And as I'm moving away from earth, I feel myself going through different like layers. And I come into this place that's like the way, black. It was just dark. There was not anything there. And I'm there and I'm like, what is this? And then I start looking around and there's billions of stars. Like just everywhere I look, there's these sparkly stars all around me. And I'm like, oh my God, this is beautiful. And I suddenly had this overwhelming love towards every single one of these bright stars that I saw. And I was looking at them in like pure awe, like this is beautiful. And then I realized I was one of them. And then I realized that we were all one, that they were all me and I was them. And that's like this pure love without any flaw. And as I'm looking at this, just overwhelmed with love, I start to feel this energy over my right side. And I knew instinctively that this was the creator. And so I remember I turned to look and there was this beautiful energy. It was a ball of light that was so big, so bright, more marvelous than the sun. It had all these different frequencies and colors and it was very like beautifully golden. And as I'm looking at this, I'm like, oh my God, that's it. That's our creator. That's God. And I'm looking at God like, whoa, like just amazed. And then all of a sudden I start to see those little stars shooting out of it. And as I'm watching these little stars shooting out of it, I start to realize those are little us. They're little souls coming out of this energy. And I was like, oh my God, this is what it means to be created in the image of God. We are an exact replica of this energy, and is birthing us into these different frequencies. And then these different frequencies are experiencing themselves throughout the universe, which has been created by this divine being and creator to experience itself. And I will never forget that feeling or seeing that being. And, whenever I start to question, like, am I crazy? Am I making this? I always go back to this because I just knew this is where I'm from. And this is who we all are. And this is where we're all from. Like, everything is this being. And so that is when my evolution of coming to know God even more, like actually physically, I would say in the spirit realm, seeing it in some kind of way. Yeah. So I've had some interesting experiences as far as like understanding life reviews and things like that. Especially that day I had the awakening and I went back through everything in my life and I saw everything I had done. I came into the understanding that everything I do impacts not just me, but every other human around me. And, I lost my dad in 2020 and he has been working with me as a spirit to come back and help me understand some of the things I'm experiencing. and confirming for me that this old mentality that I developed in religion about you're going to die and you're going to be judged by God, and God's going to decide after you're judged, like whether you're going to go to heaven or hell based on what you did on earth, or if you were good enough, or if you accepted Jesus, whatever that might be. And coming into kind of seeing myself as a spirit and seeing my life, I've understood that everything I do to another human, I'm actually doing to myself, or everything I do to another being, I'm doing to myself. And in the judgment process, we don't just judge ourselves and what we've experienced in our own understanding. We judge how we have made others feel, and we will feel exactly what we cause them to feel, which can be a little overwhelming if you think about like being kind of not really caring about how people are being treated and saying things or doing things. Like some of the smallest things that we do can be impactful. And this, in the experience of having these kind of what we would call reviews and understanding that, I've learned that I am responsible for understanding how to be love and how to radiate that out towards other people so that they can then see themselves through that same energy. And I can't, project my pain onto other people, because it's actually a pain I'm projecting onto myself when I am being harmful or judgmental or having any kind of negative thought towards another person or even an animal. Like there's like everything that we treat on earth is going to come back to us in some type of way. And my dad as a spirit has confirmed these, because after he passed away, he came back and talked to me about what he was experiencing when he died. And because he also died thinking God was the way that we had thought in religion. And he confirmed, he's like, everything you're experiencing in this awakening is true. Like nothing that I thought has happened. Like there's no judgment from God. It all comes from ourselves. It all comes in a way of teaching you more about love. So when we're going through this, it's not to shame us or make us feel bad or cause us to feel any kind of bad way about ourselves or anything else around us. It's to teach us where we lacked love and how we can get back to the energy of love and expand in that. And in that experience, like my dad was able to confirm for me what I was feeling, but also helped me to know what he was going through as he was shifting through his experience as leaving the human realm and moving back into the spirit realm. But it's, there's so many distorted views about that here on earth about what can happen, but everything is love there. There's nothing outside of love there. And we can't, when we get into that judgment part of it, we're actually hurting ourselves. I've actually been able to, so I do some mediumship, and I've been able to talk to some spirits and to my dad's spirit about the process they go through in leaving their body. And it can, depending on how a person dies, it can be a little shocking for them to suddenly be out of their body and be like, oh, I'm still alive. But, spirits have guides, they have loved ones for a reason. And my own spirit team has explained to me that our human life is literally a second compared to our spirit life. And they, because I've asked them before, what is it like for you to be on the other side waiting for somebody for like 80, however long we're here, like following us around and making sure we're on the right path and protecting it. What is it like for you over there? Like, I'm sure it's like, oh my gosh, like, come on, this is getting to be long. And they're like, no, it's literally a second to us. Like you go and you come back. And they have shown me that it is almost like a whiplash experience. Like we come in, we experience this density. It's difficult. It's hard. We go through the human thing, the life. and then we go back, and they're there to help acclimate us back into the higher realms and dimensions and guide us back into the light, because we can get lost because of free will. So they're there to protect us in that transition, and there are guides that are assigned to help us with that. And so they'll guide us into this process where they'll then begin to allow us to go into that experience where we see our lives. We go through the review. We might see other lifetimes that we've lived. We might see loved ones that have passed before us. We might experience, what gifts that we had that we didn't know we had, or we might see all the amazing things that we did we didn't even know we did. Like, we could look back through our life and be like, I had no idea that I helped that many people by just existing, by just being on earth. And one of the things that really transformed my life was my dad coming to me as I'm learning all these things and explaining to me how humans actually help spirits ascend. And as we ascend on a human realm, spirits also ascend with us, especially if we are connected like in a soul, like what we'd call maybe a soul family, or frequencies where we're connected together. And when, like, I was meditating one day and my dad came through and he said to me, Angie, I need you to forgive me. And at the time I was like, oh, I already did. That was long gone before you left Earth. Like, I already forgave you, because we had a pretty turbulent relationship and we were not very close until about the last 3 years of his life, when he got cancer. And he's like, no, I understand that you say that you forgive me, but I need you to actually heal from what I caused you. There's a lot of pain that you're holding on to, and this has kind of distorted how you see yourself in the world around you. And you can't, like, I cannot step into my purpose and calling with this pain in me. And then he said to me, by you doing that work here on earth, by you healing, you are actually going to help me release this karma, and I am going to shift in my vibration and rise into a new frequency. So if he does choose to come back to earth, he's not going to be carrying that same karmic lineage back into, if he, comes back into this family or another family, he won't be repeating the same lessons and patterns that he had gone through on earth before. And so he explained to me that those of us that are doing healing work or healing ourselves here on earth, we're helping our lineage, we're helping our soul family, even those who have already transitioned. And so some of them are actually benefiting from us here on earth awakening, and they're doing their work on the other side of releasing this karma alongside us, so that everything in the world can shift. Everything in the universe can expand and grow in the energy of love, and not be held into patterns that have been created through the human experience of repeating karmic cycles over and over through lifetimes. And so when we get back in spirit, we can see those things, we can experience those things. And so when my dad was on the other side, he felt all the pain he caused me. And that is why he came back to me and said, I'm so sorry. I had no idea I hurt you that badly and caused you to think these things. So I really need you to heal this so that you can move forward and I can shift in my vibration and no longer hold on to that cycle if I go back to Earth. The relationship with my dad is really a huge part of my awakening as well. That transformed my life. He, in 2016, when I had that weird, crazy voice experience, shortly after that, I was not really in contact with my dad. I maybe saw him once or twice a year for like holidays. And I suddenly had this really, really strong urge to reach out to him. And of course I didn't want to. But something said you need to. And so for probably a good 6 months, I denied this and didn't want to. And I finally gave in and I reached out. And as soon as I did, it was within a very short time that he was diagnosed with cancer. And so, had I not listened to that voice, that intuition, I would have missed out on those last 3 years of his life. And I feel like my spirit guides, his spirit kind of led us into this pre-reconciliation time before he left Earth, where I started to make effort to try to reconcile with my dad. Like our relationship shifted a lot in those 3 years prior to his death. And I was with him when he did pass, which really impacted my life a lot. And so after I saw my dad transition, and I was still in this place of like questioning my faith, questioning spirits, questioning this awakening I'm going through, I believe that because I had listened to that voice, it opened up this ability for my dad and I to work together in spirit after he left, because it was easy for him to come through to me. And he came to me in a dream shortly after. Like, I started to hear his voice like randomly, and I was like, am I making this up? But I couldn't deny it. It just was so interesting. But he came to me in a dream one time, and in this dream, it was another out of body experience for me. I found myself standing before him, and he looked amazing. He had on this blue and white striped shirt and these blue jeans, and he was talking to me and telling me about what it's like to be, in the spirit. And I was just like intrigued and listening. I remember just being so excited for him. And I was really struggling at that time in my life. I had a lot of loss that happened around the time that he passed. And so I was really struggling with my emotions on earth. And I remember he looked at me and he grabbed my shoulders and he said, "Ange, there's nothing, no one, or anything on this earth that should cause you to be this upset. Because when you come back to this side, the only thing that matters is love. You just need to get back to love." And in a moment, in a second, it completely shifted my perspective about everything I was going through. And instead of seeing this all against me or to hurt me or harm me and people, being mean to me or whatever it may have been, I shifted into this awareness of like, wait a minute, I am choosing to have these negative experiences and thoughts. I'm holding on to this pain because I feel like I'm validating my story. I'm trying to punish other people by hurting myself, by holding on to something. And even the pain that I experienced growing up, like I went through a lot of abuse as a child. I suddenly realized I don't have to be that person anymore. I don't have to blame other people for my pain. I am causing my own pain by holding on to the pain that they caused me. So the suffering is by my own hands. Now, the initial trauma, the things that people did to me, of course, that did cause me pain. But that was an experience that I could learn from. And when my dad came through and said, nothing, no one, or anything should cause you to be that upset, I realized that I needed to recreate my story. And that's when I started really seeking ways to heal. I started meditating every single day, like just had this urge to just sit and meditate. And I would sit and meditate for hours. And in the meditation, like feelings would come up, memories would come up, all this stuff started surfacing for me. And just instinctively, I don't really know how I knew these things, but I just knew I have to sit in this. I have to allow myself to feel this pain. And it was almost like I was taking the lid off of a pressure cooker, and all these energies that were shoved down into my body, all these feelings, this anger, this hate, this bitterness, this trauma started to surface. And it was hard to let it come out because I had to face it. But the more I faced it, the more I allowed it to come out, the less I felt it. because it was no longer who I was. It wasn't my identity. It wasn't this density that I held in. And that's when my frequency started to shift and rise. I started, we talk about rising your vibration or shifting in your frequency as you awaken. This is how you do it. You let go of the dense parts of you and shift back into the truth of who you are. And so I went on that journey of diving deep, deep, deep into my own pain, feeling it all, sitting with it all. And as I did that, I was like, oh my God, this is changing my life. And, the spirit would start to bring people in my life. I met a healer that helped me get through, do some more deeper healing work where I did some hypnotherapy work. I did all kinds of different things. I was really just like, I'm all in. I'm doing this. I'm healing it. I'm letting it go. I'm not going to be this person anymore. And I can look back 5 years ago compared to now and like honestly say I don't even know who that person was. Like, I'm a brand new human, and there's people that I'm sure that know me from then are like, what happened to her? And then there's people that meet me now and they're like, we can't ever see that you were that kind of person, or that's who you were, like so dense and so much pain. And I was a victim. I played the victim role and I blamed everybody else for my problems. And so basically I just took charge of my life and I said, no more, this is not what I'm here to do. And that's when I really just started stepping into alignment with who I am and what I'm here to do on earth. And that I know it sounds hard for somebody that's beginning that journey to be like, oh, you have to feel all your pain and your emotions. And I hear from my clients all the time, am I ever going to stop crying? And I'm like, yeah, you will. But you have to cry first. You have to let everything out. And, you have to meet with your inner child. You have to meet maybe with your past life selves, get to know yourself in a new way. It's the only way you can do it. I'm still having new experiencing happening even now. Just within the last weeks, I've had more experiences happen with this. But I have discovered that I am from another planetary system that came to volunteer on Earth to help with the global awakening. And I saw myself in a past life experience as what we would call an Octarian. So this is what we would, an alien race. This is a blue alien race that's very ancient. They're very wise. They're very loving. They have a lot of desire to help humanity heal. And I saw myself as a healer on this other planet, using my energy to help shift and change things. And so I've seen myself on spaceships a few times. Like, I've traveled in these spaceships with these other beings. I have seen myself moving things with my energy, like just putting my hand out and like moving things with energy. And just within the recent weeks, actually, I had another past life experience where I was actually taken into a past life in a session and saw my actual self. I saw this beautiful being of light that she calls herself Annabelle in the spirit. And Annabelle and I worked very closely together because I am Annabelle in that dimension, and Annabelle's frequency has shifted into this human body. And this is things that I've found out in the last probably 10 years or so. I have always been intrigued by extraterrestrial things, and at the age of 16, I did see a UFO. It would follow me. And then right before my dad passed, this was shortly after my awakening, my mom told me a strange story about seeing a light in the sky when she was pregnant with me, and that it followed her. And it was kind of just said in passing, but it opened, I was intrigued. I was like, oh, I wonder what that is. And so as I've learned more about who I am and that I am related to another planetary system, I've asked more questions. So before my dad passed, I asked him, do you remember if there was a light that followed my mom before she had me? And he goes, oh yes, and confirmed the exact same story, that he saw the light as well. And then I just had this desire, my family thinks I'm a little strange, but I decided to get brave and ask my mom recently if I could get her, if I could get a recording of her saying this story. And she confirmed that when she was 8 months pregnant with me, a light followed her and my dad home in a car, above their car when they were driving home, and was above the house. And she saw a light come down, and she thought that they were coming to abduct the baby, me, out of her belly. But I have clear visions of coming through that light onto earth to get into this body. And I know that when I came into this body, I also came with a being that is one of my helpers and guides. Besides Annabelle, I have another being that is with me. He calls himself Hanakai. He is a Octarian as well. And these beings have introduced me to a council that I'm a part of on this, in this dimension, in this realm, called the Wisdom Keepers. And so they download information into me about Earth and about the awakening and about the wisdom of the universe. Like, there's things I'm like, I don't know how I know this, but these are things that are coming to me. But all this has kind of been set up. And, my mom, I didn't realize she'd also seen the UFO a couple more times after I was born. And she had never told me that before. And so I know they've come back to visit to check on me a couple times. And I know that I will probably have even more experiences with this and getting to know that part of myself as I move forward. But that is been, it's been a journey to discover for myself, but also to accept. Like, I think some of my old religious background has really, at the beginning of this, limited my ability to fully trust in this. But as I've come into this knowing, I can't deny it anymore. There's been too many experiences I've had that confirm it. And I'm excited to see what else is going to unfold as I understand myself, but I also understand how to support humanity as this being or in this role. I have been receiving visions and information about what is happening on Earth, and we really are in what we would call a awakening of a new age or a new era on Earth. And my spirit team and council have explained to me this isn't the first time Earth has gone through something like this. There's been, we don't know how long this being we call Earth has been around. It's beyond the limit of time that we can comprehend in our human comprehension. But Gaia Earth, Mother Earth, has gone through many transformations just like humans go through. And so right now what is happening is there's many of us that have come to volunteer on Earth to help release the karmic cycles that have been stuck on the human, in the human race. And part of that is by helping to teach people how to heal themselves and how to see themselves more clearly as a spiritual being instead of just a human being. And I have seen in the spirit realm how things are lifting off of Mother Earth. And as Mother Earth is shifting in her energy, she's actually creating a new version of herself. And this new version of herself is a different dimensional energy. So we would call it the 5D. So Earth has been very dense in this 3D energy for a very long time. And, around the time that Jesus came to Earth to teach, he was also an extraterrestrial that came to volunteer to teach humanity who they were. He came to kind of prepare us for what is happening on Earth now, to let us know that that frequency that he embodied was going to be shifting and returning into humanity's consciousness. And that's what we're going through now, is we're returning into the consciousness of what we would be like Christ-like thinking. And as this shift happens, Mother Earth is going to have some things happen to her. We've already been seeing this, some natural disasters, some things that we would consider to be destructive. But this is just like when we're going through trauma release and we're letting things go in our body, we feel it, our body shifts, we might have pains or aches, we might cry more often, all these things. Mother Earth is doing this as well. And so she is kind of shaking off the trauma that came upon her because of the human experience and the density that we have all been in harming her in some type of way. Now, she's not angry. She's, Mother Earth is not a egotistic being. And so she's not doing this in an egotistic way to harm humans or to hurt us. She's doing it to support us in this ascension and help us to let go of those things that no longer serve us. So we might look at something as like really destructive and bad, like a hurricane or a volcano or flood and all these things. And from our perspective, it's not good. It's painful to see things happening, and it's painful to see people get hurt. But from this, it's hard for me to do this both as a human and as someone that's not, understands I'm not human. To see it from my other perspective, I look at it as these souls are actually doing a great deal of supporting the ascension because they came to volunteer to be a part of that release. And so these spirits are moving back into the other dimension that they came from to then come back in a new energy so that trauma can help be shifted. But I have seen a lot of things changing. Our bodies, our DNA is changing. We're becoming less dense. You might feel like the things that you used to want to do, you don't want to do or engage in. That is because in the 3D energy and world that we were programmed to function in a certain way, and the functioning of who we are is completely changing. And our functioning is going to be more based on the frequency of love and how we can come together in unity and support each other instead of harming each other or using each other to gain something. And it's going to be becoming much more loving and kind. It doesn't look like that at the current moment at all. And it's very difficult. I hear this from a lot of my clients, like, how do we get through this as this shift is happening? And my advice is always, you have to focus on yourself. You have to focus on love. The only way we change the world outside of ourselves is by changing ourselves. We cannot change anything outside of ourselves. And when we change ourselves, everything else changes because we are the creator of the reality. We are the manifestors of the experience around us. So we are in charge of how quickly this happens. We can shift the narrative. We can shift the timelines. We can shift how quickly or how slowly this goes. And based on how we are going through this experience of coming back to our own self and in love, that will be how we see things move forward in this. So it's not necessarily set in stone. The timing, the thing that is set in stone is it will be achieved. This will be accomplished. There have been times in history that this has been attempted before. But the beings that came to Earth to volunteer then were not, the way they have showed me is like places like Atlantis or other places. They kind of all gathered in one place on Earth, and they realized we've got to go everywhere. We got to spread out through the entire Earth and volunteer everywhere to bring a frequency and be there. And so there are people here on Earth that you may not even know you're here as a volunteer to change the frequency. By just being you, by just being present, the energy around you is changing when you're healing yourself, right? When you're coming into yourself. And so the timeline that we're moving into, like I've heard my spirit team tell me within the next 5 to 6 years, we're going to see a huge drastic change in how we relate with each other. I think we're already starting to see that in some type of way, but within 10 to 15 years, things are going to look very, very different. And they have told me that at least by the year 3000, the earth will completely be in the 5D energy. So it seems like it's really far away because we're like, oh God, we have like hundreds of years to go still. But we are in the birthing process of something beautiful right now. And to be a part of this is huge. And to have the ability to see it, it is hard to be a earthling, to be an earth being and experience it from this place. But from the spirit's perspective, it's a huge privilege to be one that comes to actually help with this ushering in this new energy and new earth. And when we do get fully into the 5D, our bodies will look different. The earth will, we'll still have things that we do, like almost like earth, like human like things, but they're going to be much different. They're not going to, we might be, our greatest worry might be growing our garden. It's not going to be like harm or, the things that we experienced or war or things like that. It's going to be more about how can I help my neighbor? How can I love them? How can I serve? And it's, the competition that we see now, even in the spiritual community, that will be gone. Like, we'll be more aware of our impact on each other. And, but it's going to be rough for a while before we get into this. At least the next 5 to 6 years, this is the, transition time where a lot of things are coming to the surface. Just like I was saying, like when all my pain was coming up and I was healing, I had to feel it all. That's what is happening with Earth right now, and with humans is all the pain is surfacing so we can release it. You can go to my website, is angieharris.org, or you can find me. I have TikTok, Soul Alignment Mentor is my name on there, or you can find me on Facebook or Instagram. Look up Angie Harris or Soul Alignment Mentor, and you'll find me on all those platforms. And I offer intuitive healing services. I offer past life healing, energy healing, spirit healing, like everything. I even have a support group for those going through awakening ascension, and a healer circle that meets a few times a month. So I try to keep it broad for anybody that needs anything to find support when they need it.
I want to set this up for you guys because I wasn't always looking like this. I was really unhealthy at one point in my life, and I was working really hard in corporate America. And I had had all of these series of traumas, including being kidnapped at corporate, that I never really dealt with. And I just dealt with them the old fashioned way. Probably how many of us all deal with them is I just smoked a little more. Yes, I was a 2-pack a day smoker, drank a little more, and just worked and worked and worked. And that's how my family always dealt with trauma. We just didn't talk about it. We just pretended like it wasn't there. And it just led to a series of events where I got sicker and sicker, and my body started rebelling against what I was doing to it. I was working at a large Fortune 100 company in technology. And I remember I would get up every morning and drink like 3 triple, double, quadruple Americanos, and then power through the day with Mountain Dew and chips from the vending machine, and smoke my way through the day, and then go home and have like steak and potatoes, which there's nothing wrong with, but like your body actually needs certain things. And I wasn't giving it any of those things. And so I was living this way for a while and just kept getting sicker and sicker. And finally, it led me to go to the doctor. And the doctor was like, "Ooh, you actually have some stuff going on." And I got diagnosed with MS and then rheumatoid arthritis. And all this pain started coming to my body. And they gave me pain drugs. And you know what? The addict in me loved it. I was like, "Ooh, give me more pain drugs." Like, heaven forbid that I should go to therapy and deal with the trauma. I just wanted Xanax. I wanted morphine. And so that just started to go and go and go. And then I got diagnosed with Lyme disease. And I started to go to this doctor, and she's like, we can kill everything in your body. That's what we need to do. We just need to kill everything in your body. And so they installed a PICC line, which is a plastic port that goes into your body and just delivers like chemotherapy style medication into directly into your heart. And I was doing that along with 28 different medications and end of life pain management at one point. I know. So fentanyl suckers, fentanyl patches, morphine, you name it, I was taking it. And I was in such a bad state. I weighed 240 pounds. I used a walker to get around, which I barely did get around, but when I did, I used a walker. And I was in really bad shape. I wore diapers, and I mean, I was not even 30 yet. And so I was my husband at the time I was married, he would tell you I was riding the line between life and death many days. And it was a wonder that I didn't die multiple times over. I mean, it was just such a strong cocktail. And one day it was just too much. And it was at nighttime, and I didn't feel very good. So I went to the bathroom, got myself to the bathroom, and that is where I died, right on the toilet. And just like Elvis, it's a very common place to die. And it was my big reboot, and I woke up on the other side. I didn't have that experience where a lot of people do, where they hover and see their body. I bypassed that completely. I think probably because there were so many drugs in my system, and then I finally got up enough where there was that God consciousness, and I was in, and I felt this massive expansion. I felt like it was like I had taken the tightest garments off, or piece of clothing off. I felt free and expansive and just like filled with bliss. And I remember going up, 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 and floating up into God consciousness. And it was absolutely, absolutely incredible. The most expansive thing. I always say it's the most incredible thing, the most physical thing I've ever done without a body, because I was just pure energy.
Wow, that's so amazing. So you were just out there, and I can imagine for what you were telling me, you were really into the meds. You were overweight, you could barely walk. It must have been so freeing, not
It,
having a limit, not having pain when you walk, it not being difficult.
yeah, it was incredible. It was like all of a sudden in an instant, I was totally free from this pain and this, the density of the physical body, because the physical body is dense. And that's one of the things that I feel like as humans, we don't get any training around how to deal with the density and the physical pain that can come with having a body. And I feel that trauma in our body, it will express itself if we don't give it an emotional outlet. And so it's actually easier for the body to feel physical pain and symptoms than it is to express the emotions, because we haven't been trained how to do it. So on the other side, I'm just like, wow, I was everything everywhere all at once. I joined with God consciousness. I could expand my consciousness in every direction. I could move in every direction, like literally up, down, sideways, all at once, through all of the galaxy, through all of the Milky Way, through all of the cosmos. I was literally experiencing all of it as myself. I understood, advanced math and sacred geometry. And I saw how light and sound work together, and actually how we can use those here right now for healing. It was super powerful. And it was incredible because I could literally go into all these little experiences, like the rocks and the sand and the trees and things off planet, like the Pleiadians and the Arcturians and all of these different experiences. But I was doing it all at once. And it's really hard for the mind to understand.
Oh, it sure is. Was there one experience that stood out for you, or one kind of place where you say, "Oh, that was amazing"?
The one, if I had to boil it down to just one, it was seeing how our universe is set up on this grid structure, and seeing how like our universe is actually sort of on a flat plane with geometric grids, and how the planets sit in little dips, but it's held. And how I saw it was on a grid structure. It looks to our human eyes like it's space and there's nothing there, but on the other side you could literally see the grid lines, and you could see like the support and the numbers and the light and the sound that was supporting all of that. And you could see how if you made a little tweak to the sound and light frequencies, that the reality would shift and bend. And you can use that information here to actually shift and bend your life. Like, we think that it's so solid here. We think that our lives are sort of set and everything's predestined, or like this is how it has to be. And what I saw on the other side was literally infinite possibilities, infinite potentials. And that all we have to really do is align ourselves. And I say all we have to do is align ourselves. It's easier said than done. Like, it's easier said than done to align yourself to a different potential and a different possibility. For example, like one of the things I had to do when I came back is I had to realign myself to the Alyssa that was no longer sick. I had to literally align myself to her, excuse me, versus keep aligning myself to the Alyssa that was going to probably die for real, then, and not be back in the physical body. So I saw how we have a lot of choice in our reality. I saw how we actually, when we take responsibility for our lives, not for the things that have happened to us, but like what we're doing with the hard stuff now that it's happened, and how we can use that as rocket fuel for our very best life. I really saw that we have this incredible potential and possibilities that will open up for us that were not there before, that we thought weren't there, but they were always there in the field, if that makes sense. And like, how on the other side, like all the things that your heart really desires, maybe it's the soulful luxury or the relationships or whatever, because you're desiring them, they're actually there. And I saw them as like little bubbles of things that are already actually happening, and how all of that's like in the infinite, and it's there for us. We just haven't really been taught how to shift ourselves and work with our physical body to clear out what's stopping us. And what I saw for our physical body is that our body's like a car. It's like a vehicle. And I drive a Ford. It's got a program. It's a little glitchy at times. Like, it's got these sensors on the outside of it that sometimes like go off when there's nothing around it. It's like, it'll say like left traffic coming at you, and there's nothing there. And when I realized on the other side is that our bodies, the DNA programs in there are glitchy. And they showed me how all we think we're just living this one lifetime, and we come into this body and we think, oh, that's it. It's just me in this body. I'm just living this one lifetime. But really, what our DNA holds is our soul's imprint across all lifetimes. And it also holds our genetic imprint across our parents' lineage. So what that means, and it's kind of hard for the mind to understand, but this is key when it comes to healing ourselves. Because on the other side, they gave me a lot of codes and keys to healing the body. And I believe that that's why I came back, is to help people do that piece. So when we understand that epigenetics, the science of epigenetics tells us that 7 generations back of our parents, our grandparents, parents, their emotional and physical imprints, so the traumas, the emotional wounds, the genetic wounds that they may have, all are imprinted into our program, our car. And so when our soul comes into the body and decides to have this physical experience, we pop into this vehicle that's a little glitchy, and it's got some funky programs. And so because we've been trained for the last at least 2000 years here on planet Earth in our linear time, is to be unconscious to that and disconnected from soul-based living, we haven't learned how to work with the glitchy programs and how to release and clear and then reprogram ourselves. But I will tell you, on the other side, what I saw is that when you learn how to do that, when you learn how to integrate and release and clear and then reprogram your physical vehicle, your entire world changes. The people in your life change, your experiences change, your reality changes, because you're leaving behind this program. It's kind of like your DNA projects out your world. And if you can think about, it has all these smears and funky distortions on the DNA, and you're seeing those smears and funky distortions, but then you learn to clean it off and you're projecting a different picture. So all of that I understood on the other side, and how we really do have this sacred access. I felt like, and this might be triggering for some people to hear, but I very much felt like you are God in a body. You are a ray of light, of God, of the divine, of universe, whatever your terminology is. You are that. Like, you are, imagine that this crystal with all its different facets and angles is a, a God, and then you're like this little piece that sticks up right here, but you don't realize it, right? You don't realize that you're connected to the God particle, the universe. And so I think it's really powerful once people realize, and I very much felt that over there. Before I died, I didn't really know if I was connected to God. I was confused spiritually, but on the other side, it was like, oh, as a human being, we are just a ray of God's energy. And so when we tap into that, knowing that we're these divine creators, and that we can take the really difficult things that happen to us in this lifetime, because me personally, I experienced really difficult things. I mean, being kidnapped and having my life threatened was very traumatic, really difficult. And I know even worse happens to people. But when we take that and we say, okay, what am I going to do with this really difficult experience? What's the gold that I can mine in here? What is the learnings that my soul's trying to help me learn? And when we realize that life brings us people and circumstances to help us learn lessons, then we can move through these things more quickly, because we're like, oh, here's another lesson for me. How am I going to do this, versus just reacting from my ego? I'm going to do this differently. I'm going to be like divine in physical form. And how will I move through this? So yeah, I saw a lot, but in terms of my most amazing experience, it was understanding how healing works down here, how we have to use light and sound and work with our DNA at soul level to integrate and clear some of these lessons. And here's the other thing, and I think this is the most exciting thing. On the other side, I really got this sense that for those of you who are listening right now, this lifetime is your healing lifetime. This lifetime is the one that your soul chose to come in and go, you know what? I'm going to heal some of this stuff. I'm really going to choose to do things differently. I'm going to choose to clean this up across all my lifetimes, all my genetics, all my lineages. And I at my core, that's what I believe, that this earth thing that we're doing right now, as traumatic as it might seem right now, it's all coming up for us, because this is our healing lifetime. This is where we say, we're breaking the chains, we're breaking the cycles, we're breaking the patterns.
Oh, wow. That's so interesting. And one of the things that you've said that really stuck with me, I mean, there were a few, but one of the ones that really I'm trying to figure out is you've mentioned these infinite timelines and versions of you that are available if you would just align yourself to them. So if I understand that correctly, you were, for instance, able to see or experience different Alyssas. So the Alyssa that, was not very fit and that was working herself into a grave. But you could also see these various versions of Alyssa that you could be and the life that they would lead. So is it as easy as saying, oh, I like that version of Alyssa better? What do I have to do to align myself with her?
Oh, I love this question. So, the first piece is recognizing that there are different versions of you available. Okay. And I don't think a lot of people think about this, but if you can imagine, there's a book of you. And in that book, how, you know, how when you pick up a book, you go to page 1 and 2 and 3, most people don't ever start on page 50, right? Of a book. They start at the beginning and they think they need to read page by page by page. And so that's how our brain thinks about ourselves, is that we have to go through step by step by step. And if I want to have $1 million, well, then I have to do the things to get $1 million. And I have to slog through space and time in order to get that. So the thing of it is first understanding that the book of you is all happening all at once. Just like if you bought a new book, you don't have to wait for page 50 to be written when you're on page 1. It's already there. It's already happening, right? And the ending is already also there. And so this is how our lives are. The all of the infinite possibilities are already there. And so the first piece is understanding, okay, where am I at right now? Oh, my life sucks right now. Okay, great. I don't like this thing that's happening. Maybe it's a health bit, or maybe it's a finance piece, or maybe it's relationships. I mean, these are the 3 areas where people really struggle, myself included. I mean, I've been right there and still go through things. And so what we want to do is recognize where we're at on the map and write out, like, okay, here's the things in my life that are off in a ditch that I don't like. And then what I think is really helpful is to tune into your heart and think about what it is that you truly desire. Because I am here to tell you that on the other side, what I experienced was the divine God, universe, whatever you want to call it, experiences things through you. And the emotions and feelings you feel, it's a feedback loop, right? From your eyes directly into source energy. And so the more joy and love and pleasure you're feeling, the more divine gets to feel those feelings and experience it through you. And the more pain and suffering you're feeling, the divine also feels those things through you. On the other side, there's no good or bad, but certainly there's things that are more pleasurable to feel than others. And so I think that the biggest understanding that I can share is like the desires that are in your heart, you wouldn't have them if the potential wasn't there for you to experience them. For me, I wanted to be healthy. I wanted to have a healthy body. So the potential was there, the desire was there. And so I just had to align to it. And so what I personally did, and I think this is the secret key, is that we live in a frequency, electrical and magnetic based universe. So light, electricity, sound, magnetics is what programs us. So after I came back on the other side, I learned that after I came back, I started listening to certain sound frequencies that would entrain my brain to get into a programming mode. And you guys can do this. You can literally go to YouTube, look up theta waves. Theta is the programming mode for your brain and your beliefs and your DNA, because it's all intertwined. And then literally, I would lay in my bed and just visualize myself walking and feeling really good. Because at the time, that's all I could do. I was so sick after I died and came back. I was so sick that I didn't know I really couldn't walk. It wasn't like I could just do laps around my neighborhood. So I just would lay in bed, use the brain frequencies, visualize myself filling with divine light, right? And then imagining myself walking. By the way, if you've ever heard those paraplegic stories, this is also how they started to walk again, because the mind and DNA are generating your picture on the outside. Literally, if you can think about those as the movie projector, and this reality that you're seeing and the people that you're interacting with, that's the movie. So if we can remember that this body, this brain, and our DNA is the projector of our movie, then when our life isn't going well, what we do is we go inside, we take responsibility. Okay, yep, my life's off in a ditch. Perfect. It's a great opportunity for me to work with that. And then we start the reprogramming process. And there's a particular process that I teach in the Divine Light Energy Healers Academy certification where we show you how to work with the body, but it's real simple. You can just tap on one of your main energy centers and just start releasing. Like if you're having depression, you can just simply say something like, I now release in my cells and my body and my DNA and my soul the depression that's accidentally been running in my system. And I just release it now across all lifetimes, all spaces, all dimensions, all realities. And what this does is it engages your DNA, it engages your cells, it engages your body, because all of the energy has to come down and through your physical body. Like if you're just getting massages or you're just doing like physical body work, that's great. But it's like we need to do the physical body, the mental body, the emotional body, and the energy body. So this light pulling, speaking it through, tapping it through process is huge because it releases the energy and allows it to flow. And then we'd want to like tap in and start to say something different, command our body to do something different. Like, it's safe for me to feel good. It's safe for me to have joy. It's safe for me to have a pleasurable life. And your body is listening, and you can absolutely unprogram the old and reprogram something new. And so that's what I started to do. That was a process that I started to do with myself. And like I said, I couldn't really do much besides just lay in bed, but it was like a month. And all of a sudden, I had energy to get out, and I would use my walker and I'd walk a lap around my, house. And then I could walk a little farther. And I would tell myself, like, oh, my legs feel great. My legs feel great. And I had a lot of pain, but I used the power of speaking into and choosing into the timelines that I was wanting. And I think that's really powerful, like knowing that they're there because you feel the possibility and then choosing into it. Does this make sense?
Actually, I was just writing this down because I wanted you to go deeper into. So, how do we speak into the timeline that we want to be into?
Yeah. So the first thing is visualizing it, seeing it. Can you connect with it? If there's something that you're really wanting, the hope is that you can see it, envision it. Now, I will tell you that some people come to me and say, I can't connect with that possibility. I can't even go there. And so usually what that means is it means there's so much trauma that's clogging the body. And the body is in a state of either fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And so what happens if you're in that place where you can't even really picture this life that's available for you? A couple of things are happening. Either there's too much trauma present from the body in this lifetime, or there's too many other, what I call concurrent lifetimes, where there's traumatic events happening in the now moment, because it's all is happening in the now moment. On the other side, there's no such thing as time. It's like a pancake stack. If you were eating a stack of 24 pancakes, you wouldn't say like, oh, I'm eating the 24th pancake tomorrow. You would just slice through it all and be like, I'm eating all these pancakes at once. But we tend to think like these past future lives are happening in the past and future, but they're not. They're happening a stack on top of each other. So does that make sense how it's like all, and your soul's running a thread through them all. So if you're having some pretty significantly yucky lifetimes in other lifetimes, and maybe like for me in other concurrent lifetimes, which I was able to see on the other side, I was sick, I was invalid, I had lost my legs. I mean, a whole bunch of gnarly stuff. But I was dealing with threads and strands of that in this lifetime. So part of the work for me was understanding that there was other lifetimes and patterns that I was going to clear up here. And the trauma release of that was the first step, and the healing of the trauma, the talking about the secrets, the things that I was keeping so close that I was afraid for people to know about me. Like I never talked about the kidnapping. I never talked about the things that happened after that. So I started to speak my truth and tell people. And I started to release that. I started to forgive. I started to do the trauma healing work. And so that was the first piece. But to your question about like, how do we align with these other timelines, is we first have to be able to see it, feel it, connect with it. And once we connect with it and we can understand that it's there, then I have a really easy practice that I do, and anybody can do this. And you can literally take your phone out and write yourself some notes, take out your notes app, and just describe your life as you vision it. Just write it out, every little detail that you can imagine, like who you're hanging out with, how much money is in your bank account, what you're feeling, what your house is filled with. Is it filled with beauty and objects of art? Do you have a pool? All of these things that you can imagine and connect with that version of you daily. There's a process that I guide clients to where literally we just close down our eyes and we open up their column of light so that they're connected to the earth and to their soul and above. And we ask their guides, their angels, and their soul to just download the frequency of this life to them, because it's mostly about holding a frequency. And you might even, I don't know, can you feel this right now? You feel in your body a little bit like there's a new frequency floating in. If you're listening right now, you might even feel this in this moment, just like your frequency opening up. So you can simply just connect and just ask guides and angels, can you show me the frequency of what it feels like? Can you run the frequency of this life that is available to me in and through my body? And then show me the things, the actions that I will need to take in order to attune myself to that. Because the old me was a smoker, a drinker. I was a boxitarian, I was a boxitarian. I just ate foods out of a box. Totally. I thought it was healthy, but I was a boxitarian. And once I downloaded the new frequencies, I literally had this phrase come through my head, and it said, nothing tastes as good as healthy feels. And I just didn't crave the other stuff anymore. I didn't crave it. I didn't want it. I quit smoking. I started, having green juice. I hired a health coach. She had these sparkly, magical eyes. And I thought, I am going to do anything this woman tells me to do. I don't care what she says. I'm doing it. And I did. So does that make sense? Like I downloaded first the frequency of the new me. And then I asked the universe, like, show me the actions I need to take, show me. And I just happened to be going to this chiropractor, and the chiropractor happened to say, hey, have you ever thought about meeting with Shelly, the nutritionist? And I was like, no, I never have thought about that. And she's like, I think you should. And I was like, great, let me book an appointment. So your soul will just start to show you all these things and bump you into the exact right people that are going to help you on your journey and help you align to that. And this is such an easy practice that you can do. Like literally, if you just laid in bed and got all snuggly in the morning and spent 5 minutes, 1 minute of gratitude, like, thank you for this body. Thank you for my ability to innately heal myself. I'm reminding myself that my body is built to heal. I'm reminding myself that this is my healing lifetime. I'm reminding myself that that is why I came to the planet, to heal some of this gunkety gunk that I got passed down to me and actually transform this planet. And you start to load up on gratitude because your guides and angels are super high frequency, and they actually can't come down and help you to the extent that you need if your vibration and frequency is low. So I teach this process in the academy called light, and it's where we lighten ourselves enough to where the guides and the angels can just come, and then they can work with your body, and then invite them in, and you say, my highest, most loving guides and angels, please run the frequency of what it feels like to be in my happiest, healthiest, most joyful, most high vibration, most loving relationships body. And you can probably feel that frequency now in your system as I'm saying that, and it's literally attuning you to that. And I think that's the secret key, because when we realize that our voice is the ultimate frequency harmonizer for our body. So when we command and we talk things out loud, we are harmonizing or disharmonizing our body. And so seeing these commands and these codes out loud and asking the guides to tune your frequency will absolutely tune you, and you will feel different in your body. And if I can just take a side note for a second, when I got so sick and I was working in corporate, there was a phrase that I would say every day. And I would say to people just on repeat, oh, you're killing me with that. Uh-huh. And so literally that phrase was killing me, and I didn't realize. And there's so much research and science about how sound, it's a science of cymatics, how sound changes matter and light changes matter. And so when you can visualize light coming through you, and when you can speak your voice and speak gratitude and talk to your guides and angels and be touching the body and be infusing it with light and sound, I'm telling you, your body will change. I see it all the time in the Divine Light Energy Healers Academy. People will go through the academy that are getting the certification, and they'll lose 25 pounds and their face will change. And they haven't really done much different. It's simply that they're doing these really pretty basic practices of tuning themselves. And it's so profound. And we watched, lifelong pain and trauma go away. And really, like, the keys that I'm giving you here today, this is so easy, and anyone can start with this, and it really is life-changing. Does that make sense about how to like align and tune yourself with the frequency of your infinite potential?
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to say, I was going back to my notes because you were talking about starting, these very easy, simple practices. So nothing unattainable, nothing, out there or ridiculous. And yet you were telling me that you were diagnosed with MS and with rheumatoid arthritis before you were even 30, which usually we have older people, dealing with these diseases. So I can only imagine that your body must have been in such a low frequency, being stressed out from your job. And I've worked in a corporate business environment, if you will. So I know what it feels like. I would often say, "This is killing me." That I will be dead if I don't deliver this within a few hours. Those kinds of things. So I understand the stress of it, and of course that drove you to smoking most likely. It's so difficult to imagine. As I look at you now, it's very difficult to imagine that version of Alyssa. And the fact that you're telling me that, this version sitting in front of me is the product of these very simple practices and the willingness to do them, it leads me to think that by doing those practices, you were raising your vibration bit by bit. And that was probably allowing you to drop the smoking, to keep eating healthily, to keep exercising, because the higher your vibration got, the less you would identify with those habits, the less you would feel a need to smoke or to go back to, boxed foods. Is that how you experience it as well? That the more your frequency was raised, that the less those things had any kind of appeal to you?
Totally. For me, it's a vibration thing and a beliefs thing too, which I'll maybe come back to. But I can remember after I did my first juice cleanse ever. And for me, that was frightening. You gotta understand, I was pastry girl. I was Ben and Jerry's girl. I would eat 2 pints of Ben and Jerry's a day, 4 candy bars, and like a pie. And by the way, if you ever want to gain 140 pounds, that is a good recipe. And so I remember I did my first juice cleanse and I walked into Whole Foods and I smelled the bakery and a smell that I used to love. I used to love the smell of cookies and croissants. Oh my God, don't get me started on croissants. And I just remember walking in and I was like, oh, yuck. That smells. And all I could smell was chemicals. Now, I will say on the other side, one of the things that happened is all my psychic gifts got turned on. So all my clairvoyances, and one of that is um, I think it's called clairsalience, where you can smell everything, disease on people, everything. It's a psychic sense. Yes. And I just remember smelling chemicals. And I'm like, oh, the bakery is chemicals. And so I do think that as human beings, we have all these psychic gifts, but we get so trained out of them. And I also think, to your point, like as our frequency raises, that we start to disalign with certain things and drugs and places and people. That's not to say that you can't go be around certain people. As your vibration raises, I notice there's sort of like an arc to it. At first, you're like, I can't be around those people at all. I can't do it. I can't be around those foods. I can't be around these things. And then you get to a place of more healing where you're like, oh, totally. I have just unconditional love for those people and those foods. I'm not going to eat those foods, but it doesn't trigger me. And it is not a problem that those people are eating those foods, or maybe people that are in a different frequency than you and having certain conversations. You can go hang around those people, and just your frequency being in the room will shift the conversation and it'll shift so you can totally be there. So I noticed there's a bit of an arc to the process, but yeah, it definitely is about raising the vibration. And like you said, I think what you said, Sabrina, is so important. These are not hard practices. Literally, you snuggling in bed for 5 minutes of gratitude time during the morning and doing that easy process of gratitude, that light process of lifting your frequency and connecting to higher dimensional beings that are actually here to help you and support your frequency rising, that's super easy. It's not like I'm asking anyone to go get in the gym for an hour, but after the process, you might want to go get in the gym for an hour.
Oh, I definitely think so. So, one of the things that you mentioned was sound and light being the future of healing. And I wanted to go on a bit of a journey of wishful thinking. So, a couple of years from now, how do you envision disease in our world? So, because, of course, if we open a newspaper nowadays, we see heart disease, we see cancer, we see all of these things and statistics that basically scare us all the time. We see people like yourself being diagnosed even before 30 with diseases that we should have nothing to do with at that age. How do you see the future playing out in medicine and in the care of disease?
Well, I actually see a couple of things. The first thing is that our food system changes because one of the reasons why we have disease is because we're eating chemistry. We're actually most Americans and most westernized societies are no longer eating food. They call it food and they think it's food, but it's actually an advanced science project designed to make people sick. What I saw on the other side, one of the unfortunate things that I saw on the other side is that there are certain forces at play here on earth that actually do want to keep people sick and disempowered and in victim mode. And it's unfortunate. And you can wake up to that and take responsibility back and take your life back, but it does require you to unplug from those systems. One of those systems is the Boxterian food society, right? Where you're eating advanced chemistry and natural flavors and all sorts of things that the body doesn't know how to deal with. So that's the first piece, is that we won't have the same amount of disease when we change what we're putting in our body. The body will heal itself naturally. Now, if you are in that place where you haven't shifted the body yet and the foods that you're putting into it, even right now, there's an app on my phone that I have that literally will scan your body's frequency, and then give you the frequencies it needs to heal. So sound and light come in, and what they do is, so if I have a frequency, let's say of a broken arm, the sound and light frequency will come in and take out the frequencies that are the broken arm and infuse healed arm. So we're literally taking out a frequency and putting in a frequency. Same thing with essential oils or flower essences. What these do, and why I work with these a lot, is they go in on a subatomic particle level and take out, like, let's say you're dealing with depression, they will remove at the subatomic particle level the depression molecules and they'll infuse it with resilience instead. So they're literally taking out a frequency and infusing it with a new frequency. So whether you're dealing with like something like essential oils or flower essences, these contain light and sound. So if you were to look at a flower under certain photography called Carillion photography, you would see nothing but light and sound. And so, right? And so we're taking the light and sound frequencies from plants, putting them in these essences. And then when you apply them topically or internally to the body, it literally infuses the body with new light and sound that dissolves energies and magnifies energies. So I'm just going to take, this is one I work with a lot. It's called Sacred Heart. And it's, let's say you're dealing with really hard stuff. It dissolves hard things and magnifies your resilience. So it's literally on the subatomic particle level, going in there, dissolving the hard stuff and magnifying your resilience, and things get easier. And same thing with like apps that I use on the phone. It literally, this is technology that the astronauts are already using. It goes in because they don't necessarily have great doctor stuff when you're in outer space on a space station. So they're infusing it with frequency, and they're dissolving the illness frequency or the stomach ache or the toothache frequency, and they're infusing it with health, healing, all of that good stuff. So what I see for the future, and this is not far off, by the way, is healing stations, med beds where you go and you rejuvenate the body completely. How I've always seen it is like there's sort of a dial on the beds where you're tuning into like the age that you want to be, and it just rejuvenates the body, rejuvenates the DNA. We have the technology now. It's just not been mass out there. And there's reasons for that, because unfortunately, there's tons of money in keeping people sick. And I believe that this is our healing lifetime, but I also believe that we have to take that into our own hands and come back to a soul-led life, recognizing that we're souls in a body and that we really do have to do it differently. I mean, back in ancient Egyptian times, what they're telling us were tombs were actually med beds, they were rejuvenation stations. So that's the thing. We're coming back around to some of these ancient future practices of healthy foods, coming back. Like one of the practices I teach is going out and like getting sunshine in your eyeballs first thing in the morning, which is actually when you get the first 10 minutes of blue light before the sun comes up, and then like 5 minutes of sunshine light, it literally turns on repair and protective processes in your DNA. Your DNA will start to protect itself throughout the day. And then at night, when you see the sunset and then you don't go sit in front of your computer or your TV the rest of the night and you have that candlelight, it turns on all of the repair processes so your DNA can repair itself. There's a reason why there's not dolphin, hospitals and whale hospitals, because those guys actually repair themselves. We live on an earth where when you plug into the earth and you tap into the cycles of nature, you actually repair your body. But it's part of this healing is about stopping doing the stuff that's making us so sick, plugging back into nature and plugging back into light and sound frequencies. But we have so much of that technology right now, like a quick search on YouTube. You can look up theta waves. You can look up 528 megahertz, which in a petri dish will heal your DNA. Like when we have damaged DNA and they put that DNA in a petri dish and then they put 528 megahertz on it, the DNA starts to repair itself. And so, of course, I have a lot of programs like this, but you don't have to spend money to do this, you guys. You can go and you can free stuff on YouTube and heal yourself from the inside out, and literally just go to bed at night and let that frequency just absorb into your body. Set your intention that you're going to heal, that this is your healing lifetime, and you're certain that it is. Because here's the other thing that I think is super important. Can I talk about this for a second? Do we have time, Sabrina?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we're good with time.
Okay. So our vibration is really important, but also our beliefs are equally important. And I think one of the things that you may have heard is like, oh, just be on a different vibration and it'll be so much better. It'll be so much different. But I can't tell you how many times I've seen somebody, and I'm going to use money as an example. They're super high vibration. They're always in love and in their heart, but their money beliefs are horrible and they're broke and struggling. And so what we want to do is work on both, because we live in a beliefs-based reality. We live in a vibration-based reality and a beliefs-based reality. Whatever you believe, it will be true. So if you have a belief like this is life, it sucks, it's always going to be this way, I'm always going to be depressed, If you believe that, it's going to be true for you. If you decide to change a belief at any time, you will watch your world change because your belief is informing the picture in front of you. Our vibration, our DNA holds our vibration, it holds our beliefs, and that projects outward. So if you have a belief that people are never nice to you, okay, and that everywhere you go, people are just kind of jerks on some level, and maybe that's because in this lifetime when you were 5 and just going to kindergarten, people were jerks to you. And then you realize, oh, it's probably past life stuff and parent stuff too. And your mom dealt with that same thing. Well, guess what? We have to go in and work with that belief and pick that belief apart and shift it and change it, which is the divine repatterning technique that I teach, the divine DNA repatterning technique, is to go through and shift the frequency and shift the belief so that we can have something different. So at the end of the day, we have to work both sides. It's like working the left foot and the right foot. We raise our vibration and we change the beliefs. And when we do both of those things and we do it at the DNA level, which is also at the soul level, then people have massive results. They have massive healings. They have all sorts of incredible things happen because we're using light and sound and the technology of the body. And I will just keep repeating it over and over again. Your body is designed to heal. You can have the things that you want in this lifetime. I would assert to you now that God, the divine, wants you to have them, because the more the joy, the pleasure, the love, the abundance you feel, that actually radiates around you and opens up new possibilities for other people. I come from technology as my background, and I always say we're like cell towers, and cell towers broadcast this frequency, right? And the frequency that you're broadcasting affects and impacts others. We have these things called mirror neurons. So the more frequency and beliefs you're holding of all things are possible, and I'm filled with love, and I know how to work with reality and actually bend time and space, right? And the more you start tuning into that and know that you are a divine, powerful creator in physical form, and that all you have to really do is learn how to work with it and use it for the highest good of all, right? Not use it for not so great purposes or even our own selfish purposes, but for the highest good of all. Wow. I mean, your life will change. All of a sudden, your mom, who's always been negative, will start being really positive, or your dad, who's always been a narcissist, will stop being that. It just really shifts things. So, yeah.
Oh, I can absolutely imagine, because what I've noticed in my own life is whenever I'm in a dark place, whenever I'm negative, somehow I'm fighting with everybody. Just everybody, nobody seems to get me, nobody seems to be aligned with me. And almost like bad things or things that I see as bad are happening. But when I change and I'm happy and I'm in a good place, well, guess what? Everybody else seems to be fine with me, and I seem to have productive relationships, and everything's just blossoming. So I was always thinking, well, if I'm sad or if I'm in a bad place, like, how can I honestly shift my mood? Not by telling myself I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy until I'm hoping it sticks, but how can I find something that I'm grateful for? How can I find something that I'm happy about? And sometimes I'm thinking, well, it could be worse, you know, I may not be happy with the situation as it is now, but it could be worse. So I should still be grateful for it. And I try to pay a lot of attention to how that affects things around me. So I think it's very important that you mentioned that. One thing I wanted to go back to was the app that you mentioned, that's able to heal your frequency. Can you share the name of that app with us?
Yeah. In fact, I'll drop a link. Maybe we can share that with the people. It's called AO, and it is an incredible app that literally it can do so much. I kind of want to even show it to you here. I don't know if I can, but it will scan your whole body and it works like sonar. So it literally bounces frequency off your body, boop, 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 and scans and sees, like, it can check your hormones and your blood and all of these things. And then it sends you frequencies to balance and optimize your system. Let's say you got um, a toothache, it will send you frequencies to heal that. It mends broken bones very fast. Like, it sends you frequencies. I've used this with clients where literally a bad break that should have taken 6 to 8 weeks to heal is done in 2. So it's really remarkable what we can do with sound frequency, because it's literally giving our body the things it needs to heal. You can actually look up on YouTube, you can look up sonar taking away cancer cells. Like, literally the sound frequency is blasting out cancer cells. Now, they don't use this technology a lot right now because other things are more lucrative, but we actually have this incredible sound frequency technology, but we're just on the verge of it. I think in the next 5 years, you like will treat things with frequency first. I think in 10 to 15 years, we'll look back and go, we were cutting the body open to heal it. Like, we were doing that. It'll kind of be equivalent to bloodletting. We'll think like, oh my God, that was so archaic. And that's really the future of medicine, is frequency and sound and light. But there's things that you can tune into and tap into now. Like, you can go out and get sunshine in your eyeballs. It's a natural repair for your body. We've been taught like, oh, you got to cover up your skin with sunscreen. And maybe that's true at some point so that we won't burn, but we also need light. I will tell you, the quickest way to kill a house plant, we all know this, is to not give it appropriate light and healthy water and soil. We are the same. The quickest way to kill a human being is to put it in fake light all day. And think about what most people do. Where are most people? In fake light all day. And they're not getting healthy water that's been structured by nature. And by the way, there's devices you can use to structure your water. I love the Somavedic. You can literally put this device by your water. Like, you can fill up a pitcher of water and it will structure your water so that it is actually working for your body versus, the water that we have now. Most of it has a lot of pharmaceuticals in it. And so we've got to filter our water and then structure it so it's like nature. We're mostly water. And then we've got to give ourselves that fertile soil, the food, the nutrients, the sunlight. And most human beings are not giving themselves the fundamentals that we would even give a plant. And I think that at the end of the day, if we really want ourselves to heal, we have to bring it back to nature. We have everything we need right here on planet Earth right now to be super abundant, to heal ourselves, to have these magical, incredible lives where literally miracles happen. Like, I watch miracles happen every single day, and we have all the constituents. It's just about putting them together in a way that's doable and sort of getting out of the fake lives that many of us are into. And when I say fake lives, I just mean artificial. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine. And I absolutely agree with that. Alyssa, for everybody that's been listening so far and is saying, where can I find out more about you? Where can I get all of the things that you recommend? What's the best place they can connect with you, find your courses and your work?
Thank you for asking. Well, I have a free toolkit for you guys, because I don't know about you, but I remember when I was in a place, I was on Social Security. I had no money coming in. So I made you a free toolkit. It's called raiseyourvibrationtoolkit.com. You can go there and you can get all of the goodies for free. You can get my recommendations and meditations and the light pulling process I talked about. That is just literally going to shift your world. I get comments and feedbacks from people all over the globe about this toolkit. So I think you're going to love it. It's totally free. And my hope is that you'll email me and tell me how your world is changing, because I believe that if you're listening to this right now, you are on the verge of a massive healing. You're on the verge of your best life. I know I have been at the depths of despair myself, and I didn't know how I was going to make it out. And I fortunately got some of the tools, and I believe that you can do it. And in fact, I believe you're here to do it.